Good afternoon, ma'am and classmates. I am Aryan, the first reporter. So, our topic is Chapter 2, Results, Higher Education and Life Abroad. So, the learning outcomes. At the end of the lesson, the student should be able to explain the principle of assimilation advocated by the propaganda movement, appraise results relationships with other propagandists, analyze results growth as propagandists, and disapprove of assimilation. Rizal's higher education at University of Santo Tomas. So, after finishing his Bachelor of Arts in Ateneo, Rizal entered UST University of Santo Tomas at the age of 16 in 1876. Then took up philosophy and letters at first, his father's choice, then shifting to medicine on the advice of Father Pablo Ramon. So, mauto nag-start tayo journey as a doctor. At the same time, he studied at Ateneo, where he completed a vocational surveying course. Then his achievements in Ateneo, President of the Academy of Spanish Literature, Secretary of the Marian Congregation, Licensed Surveyor in 1881. Rizal love life at UST. Rizal fell in love with Mills L na wakaybaw ay kung kinsa siya. Then he courted Leonor Valenzuela Orang gamit ang secret love notes in Invisible Ink, and had a deeper romance with Leonor Rivera, whom he called Taimis. Pero mao gito, mas deeper ang iyang romance kay Leonor Rivera. So, bata pa lang, hopeless romantic na si Rizal, pero klaro nga ang pinaka-meaningful sa iyong love life ay kay si Leonor Rivera. Rizal's life at UST. So, his grades 2 excellent, 3 very good, 8 good, and 2 fair, and strong in subjects like cosmology, metaphysics, history, philosophy, and chemistry. So Rizal faced hostility and discrimination from Dominican professors who favored Spaniards, and experienced racial prejudice and limited laboratory access. So, maayo siya academically, pero struggle gihapon kay naay discrimination, typically story sa colonial times. Got involved in student brawls and once wounded by the Guardia Civil. Rizal was unhappy at UST compared to Ateneo because of strict and outdated teaching and Spanish oppression. After his fourth year in medicine, he decided to study abroad in Spain where professors more liberal. Mao ni turning point, nakita niya nga dili siya ka-grow fully sa UST tungod sa oppression. That's why nibalhin siya sa abroad. Rizal's travel, life, and education abroad. Rizal is called the most traveled Filipino hero cause he visited around 20 countries and about 40 island cities. His travels and studies abroad will be presented in chronological order year by year. So, grabe yung exposure. Mao siguro dali ra niya makita ang difference sa Pilipinas og abroad. So, Rizal's first trip abroad. Rizal's parent, Leonor Rivera, and most friends didn't know about his trip. Only Paquiano, Antonio Rivera, some family friends, og usa ka Jesuit priest ang nakabalo. Rizal used the name Jose Mercado on his travel documents. The main reason is to transfer Universidad Central de Madrid, Spain, to finish medicine. Mao to akong gingod ganihan na ni-shift siya to medicine and dito nag-start dayon ija journey as a doctor. On May 3, 1882, he left on Spanish steamer Salvadora, only Filipino passenger, others were Spaniards, British, and Indian Negros. On May 8, 1882, he stopped over in Singapore and stayed in Hotel de la Paz, then visited sites including Botanical Garden and Buddhist Temple. On May 11, 1882, boarded the Gymna French steamer, mostly Europeans, French language on board. This was Rizal's first time nga mogawa sa Pilipinas. Makita nato na social kaayo kay nag-hotel og nag-third pa sa Singapore. On May 17, 1882, arrived at Point Galle or Sri Lanka. He found it quiet, lovely, and sad. On May 1882, he stopped over at Colombo, Ceylon, or Sri Lanka, kay more beautiful and smart than Singapore and Galle. May 28, 1882, reached Aden, or Aden, Africa, and the sightseeing camels hot climate. On June 2, 1882, passed through Suez Canal, impressed by moonlight and multiracial people. Makita nato nga observant kay si Rizal, every place iyang visit, naa siya'y immediate impression. June 11, 1882, Rizal arrived in Naples, Italy, fascinated by the Mount Vesuvius and Castle of St. Telmo. On June 12, 1882, docked at Marseilles, France. Then he stayed 3 days and visited Chateau d'Elf. On June 15, 1882, by train to Spain, stopped briefly at Porto. On June 16, 1882, arrived in Barcelona, Spain, and his first impression is ugly and dirty ends, but later on, he appreciated the lively and hospitable people there. Dili nag-start iyang European experience, to dili perfect ang first impression, nakita niya ang warmth sa mga tao sa Barcelona. Rizal, life in Barcelona. So, pag-abot ni Rizal sa Barcelona, gi-welcome si Job by Filipino classmates and friends. Then, nagkita-kita sila sa Plaza de Catalina. While in Barcelona, he also read Philippine news but received two sad updates. First is about cholera outbreak in Manila. Second is Leona Rivera's nga nag-worsen ang health.
On November 3, 1882, Jose Rizal enrolled at the Universidad Central de Madrid to study medicine and philosophy. While studying abroad, he lived a simple and disciplined life. He avoided bad habits like gambling, drinking wine, and chasing women. Rizal also developed his talents in arts and skills like painting, sculpture, fencing, and learning new languages. To keep connected daw sa mga fellow Filipinos, he often joined the Filipino community in Madrid at cafes, and also he joined social gatherings. On June 21, 1884, Rizal was awarded a license in medicine. He excelled in several subjects, though he was just average in some, and also he completed the required courses for a doctor of medicine. Pero why siya makagraduate as a doctor? Because he failed to submit his thesis. So on June 19 daw, 1885, he successfully received the license in philosophy and letters with a rating of excellent. While Rizal was studying in Spain, his family in Calamba experienced difficulties. Their harvest of rice and sugarcane failed because of drought and locust infestation. So the Dominican friars who owned the hacienda increased the rental fees despite these hardships. So the increased rent came about from Don Francisco, Rizal's father. It failed to provide turkeys to the hacienda manager, which was expected of him. To support Rizal in Madrid, Pasiano, his brother, had to sell Rizal's pani because the family was struggling financially. On June 21, 1884, Rizal earned his license in medicine. He did well in many subjects but was only average in some. He finished all courses for Doctor of Medicine but did not graduate since he didn't submit his thesis. So on June 24, 1884, Rizal was so broke and hungry that he still went to class on an empty stomach. Despite hardships, he joined a Greek language contest and won a gold medal. On November 20, 1884, Rizal joined a student demonstration to support Dr. Miguel Moraita, a professor who defended academic freedom. On June 19, 1885, he officially received his license in philosophy and letters, graduating with the highest mark. So on June 25, 1885, Rizal gave a speech at a banquet to honor. On June 20, 1884, Rizal joined a student demonstration to support Dr. Miguel Moraita, a professor who defended academic freedom. On June 19, 1885, he officially received his license in philosophy and letters, graduating with the highest mark. On June 25, 1885, Rizal gave a speech at a banquet to honor Filipino painters Juan Lona and Felix Hidalgo, who won awards in a Madrid art competition. Rizal used this event to praise Filipino talent and uplift national pride. By October 1885, Rizal visited his close friend Maximo Viola in Barcelona. In November 1885, Rizal went to Paris and worked as an assistant to Dr. Louis D. Wickray, a famous ophthalmologist. So Rizal gained practical experience in medicine, especially in eye treatment, which later became his specialty. While in Paris, he also became a model for Juan Lona's paintings, showing his connection with fellow Filipino artists. On June 25, 1886, Rizal left Wilhelmsfeld and returned to Heidelberg, bringing with him a good memories of his stay. So July 3, 1886, Rizal wrote his first letter in German to Ferdinand Blumentritt, an Austrian ethnologist, which is those expert on culture and languages. So this was the beginning of their lifelong friendship, with Blumentritt later becoming Rizal's best friend and supporter. So August 6, 1886, Heidelberg celebrates its 5th century or 500th anniversary with a grand 3-day event. Rizal witnessed and enjoyed this historic occasion. So on August 9, 1886, Rizal left Heidelberg and traveled to other German cities and finally reached Leipzig. So February 3, 1886, Rizal moved from Paris to Heidelberg to further his ophthalmology studies under Dr. Otto Becker at the University Hospital. He lived in a boarding house near the university. So during this time, he practiced German languages, admired the beautiful scenery of Heidelberg, and wrote the poem Las Flores de Heidelberg. On summer 1886, Rizal went on vacation at Wilhelmsfeld, a small town near Heidelberg. He lived with Pastor Karl Ulmer, a Protestant minister who became one of his close friends. On October 29, 1886, he arrived in Dresden, where he met Dr. Adolf B. Meyer, the director of the Anthropological Museum. Rizal stayed there for 2 days, which shows his interest in anthropology and science. So by November 1, 1886, he reached Berlin and met several important scholars. Dr. Fyodor Hagor, who wrote Troubles in the Philippines, Dr. Rodolph Berku, a famous anthropologist, Dr. Hans Berku, an anatomist, and Dr. Karl Swigger, an ophthalmologist. So these encounters connected Rizal with leading scientists and intellectuals of Europe. He also became a member of the Anthropological, Ethnological, and Geographical Societies of Berlin, so proving his recognition as a scholar and his growing reputation in scientific and academic circles. So Jose Rizal lived in Berlin, where he was impressed by the city's scientific atmosphere and the absence of racial discrimination. Despite living frugally, attending lectures, exercising, and walking along Antwerp de Linden, he faced great hardships during the winter of 1886, pawning a ring from his sister Saturnina, often eating only once a day, and worrying about tuberculosis while waiting for financial support from his brother, Pasiano. Eventually, with money sent through Juan Lona and the assistance of his friend Maximo Viola, Rizal was finally able to publish Noli Me Tangere in March 1887.
So, here are Rizal's reasons for staying in Berlin. First, to increase knowledge about ophthalmology. Second, to broaden studies of science and languages. Third, to observe German economic and political conditions. Fourth, to associate with German scientists. Fifth, to publish Noli Me Tangere. So in May 11, 1887, he and Viola left Berlin for Dresden, one of the best cities in Germany. Rizal was deeply impressed by a painting of Prometheus Bond. They also meet with Dr. Jaguar. In May 13, 1887, Rizal and Viola board a train to reach Leitmeritz, now in Czechoslovakia. They also meet with Professor Blumentritt, They also meet his wife and children. So in May 17, 1887, they left Let Me Read by a train on their way to the city of Prague. They carried recommendation letters of Professor Blumentritt to Dr. Wilhelm, a professor of natural history in the University of Prague. So in May 19, 1887, they visited Born City, but in this time, nothing really important happened here. So in May 20, 1887, they arrived in the city of Vienna, the capital of Austria. They stayed at the hotel in Metropole. They visited famous scenic places like churches, museums, art galleries, and more. Because of this, Vienna was called the Queen of the Novi. They also met with Massner and Nordmann, an Austrian scholars. In May 24, 1887, they left Vienna on a river and a boat to see the beautiful sights of the Novi River. They reached Linz, Hasborg, then Monich. They had a short time savoring the famous Monich beer, went to Nuremberg, oldest city in the Germany. They also visited tallest cathedral in Germany. So from they also went to Stuttgart and Baden and Rainfall, the most beautiful waterfall in Europe. So in June 23, 1887, they continued their trip on a boat to reach Basel or Bale. Bern, Lausanne. After sightseeing Lausanne, they crossed the foggy lake of Geneva. In June 6, 1887, they reached Geneva, Switzerland, and lodged in the Bel Air No. 2 Rode Rhein. Geneva is one of the most beautiful cities in Europe. Geneva people spoke three languages: French, German, and Italian. While in Geneva, Rizal received the saddest news. The Igorots of northern Luzon were exhibited in the 1887. Some of whom died. Their clothing and crude weapons were object of laughter and mockery by the Spaniards. So in June 19, 1887, Rizal's 26th birthday, he treated Viola to a blowout on this day. And also on this day, Rizal wrote to Blumentritt regarding an industrial exhibition. On June 23, 1887, Rizal and Viola parted ways in Geneva after they both spent 15 delightful days. Viola returned to Barcelona and Rizal continued to Italy. So in June 24 to 29, from Geneva, Rizal traveled to Italy, Turin, Milan, Venice, Florence, and Rome. So in June 27, 1887, Rizal reached Rome, the Eternal City, and the city of Khazars. He also visited historical sites, and he wrote to Blumentritt about Rome is a sanctuary of heroes. In June 29, 1887, Rizal visited for the first time the Vatican City, the city of popes, and the capital of Christendom. After 5 years of stay in Europe and other places, Rizal decided to return home. Rizal wrote to his father announcing that he is coming home. So Pasiano, Silvestre Ubaldo, his brother-in-law, Chingoy or Jose M. Cecilio, and other friends warned him to not return home because of the publication of Noli Me Tangere, which caused uproar and anger among the friars of the Philippines. Rizal did not heed the warning. So, when Rizal decided to come home, the reply of his family was not not him to go home. So they did not want Rizal to go home because of the publish of Noli Me Tangere. A lot of Spaniards got angry, and Rizal did not heed the warning. So ya siya motuo sa warning ng ija mga kuan. Bahala na daw og kuan. Basta gusto niya mo uli. So he was determined to return home for the following reasons. So first, he wants to operate his mother's eyes. So diba, as I said, sa reason sabi niya sa Berlin, gusto niya mag gusto niya magstay sa Berlin because first gusto niya mag-study ng ophthalmology. So that's what Amazon is a purpose. So mag-study sa ophthalmology para maoperahan niya ang eyes sa iyang mama. So second is to serve the Filipino people who were oppressed by the Spanish tyrants. So third, to determine how his nole, ang isa nole mitangher na libro, and is the other writings affected the Filipinos and Spaniards. And number 4, to inquire on the conditions of Leonora Rivera. So Leonora Rivera was the childhood sweetheart and most influential romantic partner of our Philippine national hero, Jose Rizal. So, ang kuan is murag siya sab kuno ang kuan na Maria Clara or character number as the character of Maria Clara sa novel ni Jose Rizal na Noli Me Tangere. So, as of July 3, 1887, so ni left na si Rizal sa Rome and ni shipped siya to Gemna bounded to Manila. So, paulit na siya in July 3. So, in July 30, sa pagbiyahe niya, ni-transferred siya ng another ship to Hepong and Saigon. So, in August 2, 1887, Hepong left Saigon for Manila. So, more than a month kapin sabi siya nagbiyahe. So, in August 5, 1887, na-arrive na sila sa Manila and warmly welcomed and stay in the city for a short time to visit his friends. So, in August 8, 1887, maupa ni balik si Rizal sa Calamba. So, these are the nahitabo sa isa stay in Calamba from August 1887 to February 1888. So first is nagtindog siya ng isa ka medical clinic, and also he treated his mother's eyes, and also nitabon siya sa mga pasyente, and especially the mga poor people na di maka-afford ng medical help. For free lang sa service. So he also earned a good income while he was still in Calamba, 900 pesos a month and 5,000 after a year. So he failed to reunite with Leonora Rivera because of a parental disapproval. So we as a tugotis as a parents na makikita sa kang Leonora Rivera. So, and next is also he faced threats from friars due to Noli Me Tangere. So, tungod sa isa Noli Me Tangere, so diri na nagsugod na muratag kuana na sila ng mga Spaniards kay tungod sa isa Noli Me Tangere.
Good day, everyone. First and foremost, let me introduce myself. I am Jomar Miguel Biberino, and I am the fourth presenter. I'll be presenting Rizal, second trip abroad. So, on February 3, 1888, Rizal left Manila on the steamer Zafiro. His heart was heavy because he was forced to leave behind his family and Calamba, which was suffering under the friars' abuses. But he went abroad for reform and for his people. So basically, on February 7, his ship stopped at Amoy, China. Curious, Rizal went down to explore, but he was disappointed. He found the city dirty and lifeless, far from what he imagined of China's greatness. So by February 8, he arrived in hustling Hong Kong. He stayed at the Victoria Hotel, where fellow Filipinos warmly welcomed him. Rizal observed lively Chinese New Year celebrations, but also noticed how Filipino migrants in Hong Kong lived quietly and now often in poverty. Okay, next, on February 18, Rizal and his friend Jose Maria Basa visited Macau. Though Macau was small and gloomy, Rizal admired the beautiful home and garden of Don Juan Licaros, a Filipino who had married a Portuguese woman. Rizal explored churches, gardens, and even the famous Grotto of Camoens, but the overall atmosphere of the city felt lifeless to him. So, after 2 days, on February 20th, Rizal returned to Hong Kong. Let's proceed. By February 21, his presence already worried the Spanish authorities, who secretly sent a spy, Jose Sáenz de Varonda, to watch on his every move. On February 22nd, Rizal set sail for Japan aboard the Oceanic. So this time, he traveled with a mix of passengers from around the world, and the ship impressed him with its cleanliness and order, reflecting the discipline he admired. So by February 28, he landed in Yokohama, Japan, and checked into the Grand Hotel. Now, let's move on. On February 29, he moved to Tokyo, where he spent 6 days exploring. Rizal was fascinated by Japan's cleanliness, beauty, and rich culture. He studied Japanese language, enjoyed kabuki theater, and admired shrines and gardens. Still, one thing that bothered him deeply is men pulling rakshas like beasts' burden, which he felt was degrading to humans' dignity. So in March 1888, Rizal accepted the invitation of Juan Perez Caballero, the secretary of Spanish legation, to live at their quarters. So this decision was both practical, saving him money, and strategic, as it helped him avoid suspicion from spies. Let's proceed. So while in Tokyo, Rizal met a woman who have left a mark on his heart, Ose-san or Seko Osai. She was refined, cultured, and the daughter of a samurai. She became his companion, interpreter, and guide. Together, they visited galleries, libraries, and gardens. Their bond grew into romance, but Rizal knew his mission for the Philippines would not allow him to stay. So, on April 13, 1888, he boarded the Belgic to leave Japan. This departure was one of the saddest moments of his life, heartbreaking kumbaga, as it meant parting with Ose-san, whom he considered one of the greatest loves of his journey. Moving on and forward, by April 28, he reached San Francisco, but was not allowed to disembark immediately due to a cholera scare, or the virus itself. And on May 4, Rizal was finally permitted to land. He stayed at a palace hotel and prepared for a long journey across the United States. From May 6 to 13, Rizal traveled by train across America, passing through cities like Chicago and New York. He was impressed by the progress of the country, but also disturbed by the racial discrimination he witnessed against Asians and black people or African American. So on May 13, 1888, Rizal reached New York City. Nakaabot na siya. A few days later, on May 18, he boarded the city of Rome for Europe. Before departure, he admired the Statue of Liberty, a symbol of freedom, which embarked or struck him as ironic, since his own people were still under Spanish colonization or Spain's oppression. By May 25, Rizal arrived in London. There, he devoted much of his time to research at the British Museum, where he studied the old Philippine documents. He worked on annotating Antonio de Morga's Sucesos de las Islas Filipinas to prove that Filipinos had a rich culture before the Spaniards came. So basically, but while in London, Rizal received painful news from home. Fellow Filipinos pushed for reforms were persecuted. His family and neighbors in Calamba were harassed for demanding justice, and his brother-in-law, Manuel Hidalgo, was exiled without trial, and his friend, Loriano Viado, was jailed for owning copies of Nole Me Tangere. Despite this, Rizal continued his mission in September 1888. He went to Paris for further studies. By December 11, he was in Spain, meeting with fellow reformists Marcelo H. del Pilar and Mariano Ponce. So on December 24, before Christmas, Rizal returned to London for Christmas, which he celebrated warmly with the Beckett family. So at the end of the year, on December 31, 1888, the reformist group of La Solidaridad was founded, with Rizal chosen as its honorary president, showing the high regard his fellow Filipinos had for him. In January 1889, he pushed for a bigger vision. So on January 14, he suggested to his friend Ferdinand Blumentritt the creation of an international association of Filipinologists, scholars who would study and honor Philippine culture and history. On January 28, Rizal humbly declined personal honors from La Solidaridad, reminding everyone that true service to the country mattered more than titles or rewards. Finally, on February 15, 1889, the first issue of La Solidaridad newspaper came out in Barcelona, founded by Graciano Lopez Jaena. Rizal supported the paper but cautioned its writers to always be careful and responsible, knowing that every word carried weight in their fight of reform. That's it. Thank you so much for listening. That would be all for my part.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Andrew Clarence L. Adobo, and I will be the reporter for today. So, slide 45 and 46. The aims of La Soledad and Rizal in Paris, 1889. La Soledad was a newspaper created by Filipinos in Spain to fight for reforms in the Philippines. Its goals were ask Spain for peaceful and political and social reforms, show the bad condition in the Philippines so Spain might help, fight against injustice and abuse of power, promote freedom, liberal ideas, and progress, defend the rights of Filipinos to life, democracy, and happiness. March 19, 1889. Rizal went to Paris and formed the Kidlat Club to unite young Filipinos during the Paris Universal Exposition. May 16, 1889. He attended the opening of the expo, saw the new Eiffel Tower, and was proud that Filipinos like Juan Luna and Felix Hidalgo won art competition. June 24, 1889. Rizal became the godfather to Juan Luna's daughter. This showed his close ties with other Filipino patriots in Europe. Rizal was actively networking with fellow Filipinos in Europe and supporting the reform movement through La Solidaridad. Slide 47 and 48. Rizal's activities in 1889 and 1890. Rizal's 1889, Rizal planned to create the International Association of Filipinologists in Paris to study Philippine culture and history. September 21, 1889, he founded the RDLM Society, Redemption of the Los Malayos, together with fellow Filipinos like Marcelo H. Del Pilar and Mariano Ponce. December 25, 1889, Rizal, his friend Jose Albert celebrated Christmas dinner there. January 15, 1890, Rizal returned to but found life very expensive and complained of sickness, so he moved to Brussels, Belgium, where living was cheaper. June 20, 1890, he asked Del Pilar to serve as lawyer for Colamba land case against the Dominicans in Spain. July 9, 1890, he advised Mariano Ponce not to go Cuba and instead focus on returning to the Philippines. Rizal was very active in organizing society for reforms and freedom, but he also struggles financially and worried about his family's land problem in Calamba. Slide 49 and 50. Rizal in 1890 struggles with friendship and heartbreak. July 18, 1890, Rizal wanted to return home because of his family's suffering in Calamba. July 29, 1890, he lived with Brussels for Madrid at the same time. He had a romantic friendship with a Belgian girl, Suzanne Zakoban. Early August 1890, in Madrid, he sought help for Calamba tenants who were abused by Spanish prayers and Governor Wheeler. August 19, 1890, Rizal's friend Jose Ma Panangiban died. August 30, 1890, Rizal defended Nelia Borosted's honor when Antonio Luna insulted her, leading to a near duel, but they reconciled it later. September 6, 1890, Rizal's family was heartbroken when he learned Leonor Rivera, his longtime love, married an Englishman. 1890 was full of pain for Rizal's family, suffering the death of a friend and heart in love, but he kept fighting for justice. Slide 51 and 52. Rizal and Del Pilar's rivalry in 1891. Late December 1890, Rizal and Marcelo H. Del Pilar clashed over who should lead Filipinos in Spain. January 1, 1891, about 90 Filipinos meet to settle their conflict. Rizal chose to step back and withdraw from the propaganda movement to avoid division. February 4, 1891, Del Pilar teased Rizal about the title of Nole Me Tangere. February 7, 1891, Rizal was offered leadership of newspaper Las Trinidad, but he refused it. March 19, 1891, he finished the manuscript of El Filibusterismo. April 4, 1891, he wrote to Jose Mabasa planning a trip to Hong Kong. Rizal sacrificed leadership to keep Filipino united, focused on writing El Filibusterismo, and started planning his return to Asia. Slide 53 and 54. The printing of El Filibusterismo and the Rizal departure of 1891. May 1, 1891. Rizal stopped receiving allowance for students and license writing for La Solidaridad. May 30, 1891. Almost finished revising El Filibusterismo. June 13, 1891. Negotiated for the Noble's printing. July 5, 1891. Moved from Brussels to Ghent. August 17, 1891. Del Villar invited him back to La Solidaridad, but Rizal declined. October 3, 1891. After that, published Rizal left Ghent for Paris. October 14, 1891. From Paris, he went to Marseilles. October 18, 1891, boarded the ship Melbourne to Hong Kong, bringing 600 copies of El Filibusterismo. Rizal successfully finished and published El Filibusterismo despite financial struggles. Then he left Europe to return to Asia with his new book. This slide shows Rizal's life between 1889 and 1891. During this time, he was deeply involved in the reform movement through La Solidaridad. Placed personal struggles, family, suffering, death of friends, heartbreaks, clashed with his propagandists like Del Pilar, and focused on finishing El Filibusterismo. Eventually, he left Europe with his book and ready to continue his fight for reforms back in Asia.
November 20, 1891, Rizal arrived in Hong Kong and opened his own medical clinic where he treated patients, especially the poor. December 21, 1891, he wrote to his parents asking to return home, and December 24, Rizal was reunited with his family in Hong Kong and then celebrates Christmas happily with his family in December 25. January 31, 1891, Rizal wrote to Bill Street about his pleasant life in Hong Kong. March 7, 1892, Rizal went to Sandakan, North Borneo, now it's a part of Malaysia, to negotiate with the British for land where Filipinos could settle. Then British offered 100,000 acres. April 20, 1892, Rizal returned to Hong Kong. But some of his friends did not support the Borneo colonization. May 8, 1892, he planned to return to Manila to establish La Liga Filipina, a group for reform and unity. June 1892, Rizal wrote La Mano Roja, the Red Hand, blaming the Spanish government for the fires in Manila. June 21, 1892, he left Hong Kong with his sister Lucia under the Spanish consul's guarantee for safety. June 26, 1892, Rizal arrives in Manila. The propaganda movement from 1880 to 1895. It is a campaign for Filipino reformists to seek changes and equality under the Spanish rule. Its goal is to gain equal rights and reforms. Historian Dr. Domingo Avila described it as a counter-propaganda since it aimed to fight false Spanish reports about Filipinos. Now let's have the prominent members. First, we have Jose Rizal, the author of No Limitaquere and El Filibusterismo, exposing the Spanish abuses. Graciano Lopez Jaena, he is a ferry operator, founder of La Solidaridad newspaper. Mariano Ponce, he is a movement secretary. Marcelo H. del Pilar, a strong reformist leader, and he wrote many essays calling for reform.
So aims of the movement: first, representation of the Philippines in the Spanish Cortes, secularization of the clergy, equality between Filipinos and Spanish, public school systems independent of friars, abolition of forced labor, polo reservations, and bandala, which is the unfair taxes, guarantee of basic freedoms. Lastly, equal opportunities in government service. Rizal's relationships with other propagandists. Antonio Luna at first clashed with Rizal because of a misunderstanding over Nelly boasted, but later reconciled because Luna respected Rizal. Graciano Lopez Jaena, Rizal criticized him for not finishing medical studies, and Jaena became a fairy orator. Mariano Ponce supported Rizal by spreading No Limitang Hiri and introduced Rizal to Del Pilar. Jose Alindreno, Rizal's roommate in Belgium, helped correct, edit, and print El Filibusterismo. Edalberto Evangelista, he is a civil engineer, studied in Ghent on Rizal's advice, but later joined the revolution and arrested in 1896. Rizal's disapproval of assimilation. First, Rizal did not fully agree with the idea of making the Philippines completely part of Spain. He emphasized that peaceful reforms alone would not be enough. He wrote to his friend Ferdinand Blumentritt that seeking assimilation was a mistake. For Rizal, independence and Filipino culture was more important than just becoming Spaniards. Jose Rizal's Spanish speech in Madrid in June 25, 1884, delivered at the banquet honoring Juan Luna, who won the first gold medal for his huge painting, the Espolarium, and Felix Resurrection Hidalgo won a silver medal in the same event for his painting, the Las Virginis Cristianas Expuestas al Populacho, praised their international achievements in the art, signified Filipino talent and dignity recognized worldwide.